Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Taking the Lead. I'm your host. I'm Ken Jacobs of Jacobs Consulting and Executive Coaching. What you don't know is that we've got two very special guests today. It's very rare that we invite anyone back, and we are going to invite one gentleman back. And it's even rarer to need someone else to make sure he behaves. So we're doing all of that today. I am so delighted to introduce to you Steve Cody, CEO and founder of Peppercom, and his boss, Clayton Fletcher, Chief Comedy Officer of Peppercom, and their authors. They are the authors of the ROI of LOL. HarperCollins just came back. Please join me in welcoming, with a good dose of fear about what's going to happen, Steve Cody and Clayton Fletcher. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Ken. What a nice introduction.
Thank you.
It was an okay introduction,
I
Ken.
improvised it.
It was okay.
I improvised.
Yeah, it was
All right,
okay.
we're going to jump both. All right. So we have some questions for one, some for the other, some for both. For both of you, you've just published the ROI of LOL, and having read it, I can tell you it is my anti-penultimate business book that I'll read this month. I read it on a Kindle Fire, so it felt truncated. And despite that, I do think it fully captures the zeitgeist of today. That said, what is the ROI of LOL?
It's everything about today's world and the desperate need for laughter and humor in the workplace. It's all about transforming an organization or a leader's mindset from yes, but to yes, and embracing creativity, imagination rather, because if you don't, my friend Ken, you will not survive, you will not thrive. Your leadership series will wither and die on the vine.
Now, on behalf of Steve, I know Steve meant to say, Clayton, shall I go first? But because he didn't, I will invite Clayton to give his, if he has any different, I see where this is going, folks. If he has any different perspective or anything to add to what Steve said.
So one of my favorite quotes from the ROI of LOL, Ken, is that we say that it's not about putting people ahead of profits, and it's also not about putting profits ahead of people. The ROI of LOL, in fact, is people and profits. And, Peppercom is our best example. We're always laughing at work, and we've experienced very little turnover since the pandemic ended. So it's been going great, and we think we just keep everybody laughing, keep everybody happy. The money's rolling in, life is good.
Well, I would. Can I say yes and to that, Ken?
Yes, and yes.
Yes, and the turnover has been microscopic, and I would say yes, and many of the leaders in the public relations world on both the agency and corporate side take their business very seriously, as do I, and they take themselves way too seriously. And I think that's a big problem. I think it's a big problem from a leadership standpoint, and I think self-deprecating humor is sadly lacking in our profession, my profession, if you will.
So, you guys have a lot of statistics in the book, and I want to go back to something, Clayton. When you study, the laughter at Peppercom, are they laughing at Steve, or is there other, like, do we have bar charts on that, or what's going on with that?
Yeah, mostly
the full PowerPoint deck on that.
Yeah, most of the laughter is definitely at Steve's expense, but he likes it that way. As you know, you and Steve have known each other for a long time, Ken. I don't need to tell you, Steve likes all kinds of attention, good, bad, negative. He doesn't care. So, and it's great because a CEO who is able to lead with that kind of openness and self-deprecating. Steve mentioned the importance of self-deprecating humor, but what it creates is a culture, really, where employees feel free to make appropriate jokes at appropriate times, and we enjoy doing our jobs more because everyone is happy. Laughter just makes you feel good.
So it's funny. I'm going to ask a question I wasn't planning on asking, which is, how do you make sure people don't cross the line? Some people don't know about, there are certain kinds of humor that don't work or inappropriate?
That's
How do you find that?
that's the beauty of what Clayton does. We, as you know, Ken, we've been training our employees in stand-up and improvisational comedy for at least 15 years. And one of the big things Clayton talks about are the guardrails. And Clayton, I'll turn it over to you in terms of that.
Sure. So, different types of comedy for different occasions, right, Ken? So, I mean, if you want to use your sense of humor at work, it's not going to be the same sense of humor that you would do if you're performing on stage at the comedy club at midnight on a Saturday. And so we talk about that, and we just tell everybody when we first, initiate them, if you will, when they go through their initiation process, and we have that first ever stand-up comedy class that we teach. I just tell them like this: if you have any doubt in your mind about whether something is appropriate for this particular workshop that we're doing today, it's not. When in doubt, leave it out.
Right. Exactly.
And Ken, if I could just quickly elaborate, knock on wood, I'm probably have an email or two in my inbox right now, but post stand-up and improvisational training, we have not had a single harassment suit. I mean, we know what the guardrails are. We know how to think, how to act, how to speak, how to engage with one another. So it's just a beautiful thing. And we also have all sorts of, if you will, inside jokes that we're constantly sharing as a result of our stand-up and improvisational comedy. It's a beautiful thing to experience.
Yeah. So, the book makes a very compelling case for the use of humor in biz dev, in sales, in pitching. But let's go a little, since our podcast is called Taking the Lead, how can leaders use humor to drive something we all want today, which is a team of engaged employees or followers, whether it's PR or not, whether it's agency or not? The numbers of disengagement, the numbers of unhappy employees, it's staggering. So what's a leader to do?
I can tackle that, Clayton. It's up to you, but I think it's, as you know, Ken, we talk about both stand-up and improvisational comedy. And improvisational comedy is very much about active listening and very much about cooperation and collaboration and teamwork. So when we put either Peppercom employees or all the different client organizations with whom we work, it's all about helping each other, listening to each other, engaging with each other. And it's a very different type of experience when we do things like the yes and exercise, last word, first word, all sorts of really cool things that Upright Citizens Brigade, Second City pioneered. And it works beautifully to get, a 22-year-old or a 52-year-old or anyone in between or across engaged and involved. It's a cool thing. And many of our clients will ask us to do the improv training before they have a strategic planning session in which they talk about very serious business because they want to have that collaboration. Clayton?
One of the catchphrases, I guess, that's been bandied about a lot in the last year or so is something called empathetic leadership. And what that means to us is, well, in the book, we explore 3 different styles of comedy: stand-up, improvisation, and sketch comedy. And we talk about how the lessons that performers who practice these types of comedy learn, the lessons that they learn can be applied to being the boss or being in the C-suite, however you want to call leadership. Right?
We don't say the boss. We don't say the boss.
Okay. All right. Well, I know who's the boss in my house, and it's not me. So put it
It's
that
not
way.
me either. I don't have, yeah. I have a direct report to the CEO in my house.
Right.
Exactly.
So from doing stand-up comedy, we learn about our own unique individual sense of humor. What do I think is funny? What am I all about? What's my truth? Right. And because the first lesson in stand-up comedy is tell the truth. When you move into improv, it's about using those skills together as a unit and building something together as a team. And then, when you talk about trying to speak to the millennial generation, they've grown up on sketch comedy, whether it's millennials, Gen Z, they love SNL, Key and Peele, Inside Amy Schumer. And we talk in the book about how the tenets of that particular type of comedy can be applied to leadership. And we use good examples and Steve's favorite bad example from Silicon Valley, for sure. Comes up quite a bit in the book as well.
A fellow named Musk.
Oh, such a funny guy. So, Steve, I often have quoted in my leadership training your example from 2008 and 9 when you had that perfect storm, 3 clients let
Yeah.
Peppercom go due to nothing the agency had done. I make that very clear. It was the last economic downturn. And you talked about getting your game face on and never letting your team see you sweat. And I just am curious, do you still, now that we've experienced another downturn, or we are experiencing it, or we're about to, do you still stand by that advice? Never let them see you sweat.
I'm okay. I mean, fear is contagious. So I certainly don't want to project any fear. And, I'm at the point, and I think you are too, Ken, since you're 10 years my elder. We've seen it. We've seen it all. So, we've been up and down. I've been up and down so many different roller coasters. I've had good times, bad times. I sound like a Led Zeppelin song. So
I'm thinking I'm still here from Follies, but that's
okay. Well,
that's my
to each
cultural,
his own.
Very nice.
right? Sondheim tribute.
Yeah, all right. To each his own. I forgot the question, but no. So it's all about, no, Ken. It's
Yeah.
I do want.
Clayton, have you noticed that more and more with Steve, the forgetting of questions?
Oh yeah, he has a senior moment every 5 minutes. Yeah,
I don't even know who the two of you are.
Doing the club.
But Ken, so as far as the sweating, I'm cool with them seeing me. Look at me. I'm an open book. Yeah, if I'm cut, I bleed. Right. Seinfeld callback. So I'll certainly. And during the pandemic, I was very open and honest with all the employees, saying, "Look, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if you're going to have to take a salary cut. I don't know if we're going to have to lay people off. But I promise, I will let you know as soon as I know." And I will share the pain, and I will take the biggest hit. And so there were other executives, CEOs in our field, the agency field, who made false promises, who said, "I will not downsize." And then 3 or 4 months later, huge downsizings.
Yeah.
So I'm all about, this is what it is. This is who we are. This is how we're doing. We're very open with top and bottom line profit and how the business is doing. So I want my employees to know how the business is doing, and I want them to see how I'm feeling. And we all have bad days. I try to mask the bad days as best I can, but I'm a human being.
Well, I think the jury still might be out on that, but I have a question for Clayton. Clayton, what was it like when you first meet Steve Cody and realized this guy wants to hire me to be his comedy trainer or comedy coach, and he clearly isn't funny? What am I going to do with this? How do I shape this lump of clay?
Au contraire, Ken Jacobs. I'm the one who thought Steve was funny. He signed up for a comedy class, and the final project for that class was he did 5 minutes at a club here in New York. I was the MC that night, but I approached him after the show and not realizing that, he was a CEO or anything. And I just said, "Hey, I thought you were pretty good. I don't know if you want to try it again or if you just took the class for fun, but if you want to get started, I can help you get started." And I created this monster we see before us today.
Oh my Lord.
My fault.
I always respected you, Clayton Fletcher, but all things come to an end.
I'm sorry.
Have you seen his routine? I'm just okay. I'm just curious. All right. Let's take it back to Steve. After many years as an indie firm, a proud indie firm, you sold Peppercom to Reuter Finn. And did you need to use two-part question? Did you need to use humor to get you through the pitfalls of merging? Because we all know it's not always easy. And putting out on the tightrope. One of our previous guests, one of our most downloaded guests, was Reuter CEO Kathy Bloomgarden. Do you use humor to lead up to her now that you have a boss?
Absolutely. Kathy is very open to me and to Peppercom, and we bring it's compatible. It's a very different zeitgeist, to use one of your words, Ken, to the Reuter Finn DNA. So they are very open to the new ideas, the unexpected, sometimes funny opportunities that we bring their way, the humor, the power of humor. We have trained, Clayton and I have trained most of their senior management team. We have a big training for 100 of their people at the upcoming global retreat at the end of October. So Reuter Finn has not only embraced Peppercom, and there was, I come from a J. Walter Thompson, Hill and Knowlton background. I know the global agency mindset. The reason I was so interested in Kathy and Reuter Finn is that they're private. They're not, not publicly traded holding companies. So it's a very different conversation that I had with Kathy, and I felt that we were aligned, and there were no speed bumps. And again, I pinched myself. We didn't lose a single client, and we didn't lose a single employee, nor have we in the year and a half since we've been with Reuter Finn. So it's been a beautiful thing.
Good. All right. Gonna ask you, you can answer together, you can answer separately, but I'm really gonna ask for honesty. When has humor backfired? Not in a comedy club, right? But as a leader, and how did you recover?
I'll let Clayton take that one first.
Oh, sure. Wow, that's real leadership. Don't we talk about
Hey,
courage?
I lead from behind. Ken.
Entirely.
Yeah, I don't like Ken.
We're getting back to you, Cody. I promise.
Yeah.
So you can start thinking of your answer.
Yeah, in our book, which is currently available for pre-sale, ROILOL.com, we talk about examples of when comedy goes wrong. And let's be clear too, Ken, like this is not for every company. If your CEO, your entire C-suite doesn't believe in laughter in the workplace, they feel like they don't have a funny bone. We're not trying to squeeze, a square peg into a round hole or anything like that. All we're trying to do is for those who want to become more charismatic and develop their personal charisma and become more empathetic leaders, this is, that's our target market. We don't think it's for everyone. But yeah, there have been times, in our book, one of our executives, Rob Duda, was really confident. He had just performed for the first time in a real comedy club at Steve's urging. So I had been working with Rob and training him in a similar manner that I had with Steve in the early days, just helping him figure out what makes him funny. And he had a great weekend performing in a comedy club, and he really, he knocked him dead. So the next time he went to a meeting, he's like, "Hey, do you guys want to hear some of my stand-up comedy?" And he's pitching, and they were like, "Well, okay." And it's not the same. Trying to do stand-up comedy in a boardroom is not the same as doing it on a Saturday night in a comedy club. And Rob learned the hard way that was a mistake, but he owns his mistake, and we all have a good laugh about it today. But yeah, we ended up not getting the business that day.
I think a lot of the okay. I think Steve got a lot of that when he was dating. Like, do you want to go out with me? Okay. So that was probably a familiar.
I actually did pretty well in my dating life.
Oh, look at this is like Inside Edition, or
yeah,
exactly. It's the R-rated version of leading. But I just wanted to say there were several instances at Peppercom with an individual who I inadvertently said some funny things about that I thought he would embrace, but in fact, he was embarrassed by it.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt terrible about it because I had publicly embarrassed him in front of the entire management team. So I learned some very valuable lessons about making sure that someone is in on the joke before one perpetuates that joke. No, I'm using the wrong P word. Help me here. Whatever.
We're both stuck. We can't help you.
Stuck.
We can't help you.
I like
either can't help you or don't want to help you. I don't know.
All right, fine. Well, whatever. I learned some valuable lessons there, Ken.
Good. Two more questions. Clayton, I was surprised to learn that you and I share something in common, studying at the respected HB Studios, named after Herbert Berghoff. So, two questions. How did you get it? How did I get in as a 16-year-old? Like, it's just shocking to me. You may not know the answer to that. But seriously, folks, how did studying drama, because they're pretty serious at HB, how did that affect your work as a comedian and what you're doing today?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked me that, Ken. I kind of forget sometimes about my theater background, but I actually have a bachelor's degree in musical theater from
What?
Shenandoah Conservatory in Virginia. And so
Stop.
when I first moved to New York, my plan was to try to make it to Broadway. And I was auditioning, and I got into I was doing lots of jazz hands, and I was a singing tap dancing Jesus at one point in Godspell. And I had quite a career. Actually, I was Buddy Holly in the Buddy Holly story on the road. So I had a lot of experience acting under my belt, but it was actually in that production of Godspell where the fellow who played Judas was ironically the one who mentioned to me one day that he thought I was funny. We used to make a lot of jokes with each other, behind the scenes during intermission or whatever. And he said, "You should try stand up." And my first reaction was, "No way, I could never do that." But he really pushed me into and talked me into it. So I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And the first time I ever tried stand up, I wasn't great at it, but I knew that I had fallen in love. I absolutely, there's nothing quite like being able to say whatever I want and being the only one on stage with the microphone. And there's so many things about it that you just have to love.
And did you pay Judas 30 pieces of
30
silver for
pieces
that
of
advice?
silver. That's the
Right,
going
Judas
rate.
kiss.
Yeah,
I would hope
exactly.
Judas
so.
kiss.
Yeah.
All right. Last question, gentlemen. What's the question you were dying for me to ask that I didn't ask? And we know the book. We know it's coming.
Well,
You've both done a great job. This was just, you could use this in media training. How do you do all the messaging, and how do you, brilliant job. But what haven't I asked you that you'd like?
Well, why are so many CEOs still so uptight and still so resistant to showing their vulnerability and being really open and honest with their employee base? Why do they not get that will make them a much more powerful leader?
So I'm going to pretend I asked you that. I just asked you that. What's the answer?
Fear. Their fear of failure, the vulnerability. I'm the CEO. I'm the leader. I'm a strong woman. I'm a tough guy. I can't show vulnerability. There's no room for humor and laughter in business.
Clayton, anything to?
One question I was hoping you would ask, Ken, is what do comedians know that business people should learn?
That's a great question. What do comedians know that business? Wait, I have a question for you, Clayton.
What is it, Ken?
What do comedians know that business people should learn?
I have to say, first of all, excellent question. Really good question. I mean, there are fundamental skills to being good at comedy, and they're all about communication, right? It's how to get to the point, how to be very clear, how to read an audience, determine what the nonverbals are telling us, even what the laughs are telling us, or the silence is telling us, all these things that become instinctive for those who practice comedy on a regular basis. But business people don't have the same experience, but they can learn from Steve and me and from our book how to apply those skills to their jobs. We're not looking to make everybody a hilarious comedian or even necessarily a hilarious CEO like Steve, but we're trying to teach people what people from my world know that people from your world should learn.
Yeah, and business schools.
He didn't say trying to make everyone a hilarious comedian like Steve. I did not say that.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, true.
I think anything having to do
active listening.
Yes, active listening. The other point I was going to make, Ken, is that business schools are waking up to this. They're realizing that future leaders need to learn empathetic skills, and comedy and listening, active listening, and engaging the way stand-up comedians and improvisational comedians do is fundamental to leading in the future. So you're seeing more and more business schools, Stanford being the textbook example, pun intended. Stand-up comedy is a 3-credit course at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. They get it. And you'll see more and more colleges and universities start to embrace this.
Wonderful. Great. Gentlemen, I'm going to say this. I've known Steve, I think 30 years, give or take. And this is the first time he suggested something that actually was really good. And I'm really glad we did it. So
better late than never.
The one and done. It was a one and done.
Never cease. So Clayton, Steve, thank you both very much. If you haven't yet ordered The ROI of LOL. Get it? It's interesting. I mean, thanks for asking if I liked it, but I think that this notion of a valuable business read, and I did LOL. So I got ROI from reading the book, and I know others will. So thank you both for being here. Best of luck with the book. The viewers. Oh, so may I say, if you want to reach out to Steve and or Clayton, what's the best way? On the website, through email, LinkedIn?
We have a special page set aside. It's www.roilol.com. Best way to reach both of us.
Great. And for anyone who wants to reach out to me, I'm funny, but not as funny as evidenced today. But if you want to reach out to me to discuss leadership, becoming a better leader, what is coaching? How does it work? Any of the above, we'll spell it. Hopefully we'll get it right. KEN@JACOBSCOMM.com. We'll do it again because I've messed it up on the show before, but KEN@JACOBSCOMM.com. And with that, we'll wrap things up. We'll say thank you. And until next time, keep on taking the lead.